It's really tough. I definitely feel like with clients right now, we're talking so much about stress management, and it's 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 easy because it's easy to encourage people to do it, but it's hard to actually do it yourself. So it's easy to like really motivate everybody. When it comes to motivating yourself and actually doing it, sometimes it's a lot harder. So being at home, it's like you're under more of a microscope on yourself because you really have no excuses. So I definitely feel like that's a struggle that everybody's been having lately too. But I think everybody's doing good. My clients have actually been super positive. I wrote them all today and was like, I'm just so grateful for you guys being so positive lately. Like, of course, everybody's having a rough time, but at the end of the day, everybody's really keeping a smile on and trying their best to power through. And, that's all you can do right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like you and I were talking about this like right before we jumped on, and it's
Yeah.
like, what are you going to do with this quarantine time? Are you going to be someone who is proactive, saying like, all right, this area of my life, this area is not working, or like this way I'm
Yeah.
thinking about certain things is not working. And you have these weeks now. You have this hopefully like a little bit of secure, safe, free
Yeah.
time to think about these kinds of things, and you don't have to take on this whole kind of victim men like mindset. Like you can act
Absolutely.
like the virus is, destroying your life, and for many people it is, so we have to be respectful of that. But some people, like, it's very easy to get into this mindset of I'm alone, like nobody's talking to me, I don't have work, like my life is falling apart. And like you can really do a lot of mental damage to yourself by holding on to that kind of negative way of thinking. So
Yeah, you're so right. And you hit the nail like right on the head. And like that's like kind of what you and I were talking about yesterday is like this feeling of like loneliness and like the fear of the unknown of what's going to happen is like something so similar to what you and I have like previously experienced with autoimmune diseases. And it's just like it's crazy to think about like the whole world experiencing that feeling right now, and like thinking about how you and I felt when we were in that situation and like didn't feel like we had anybody to talk to, and we were so alone, and there was just so much fear, but yet we couldn't really like verbalize those fears because it was so new. It was something we hadn't experienced yet. And when other people aren't experiencing the same thing, it can be hard to talk about it. But the nice thing about this situation is while we're all feeling the same feeling that you and I were feeling, at least now we're all feeling it together,
mm-hmm.
and we can work through it together. And now that we've really set up some different ways to cope with this, and we figured out some like tips and tricks to get our mindset back on track, it's like we felt like we obviously had to share with other people and just see what we can do to kind of get everybody on the same page, and like understanding that you aren't alone. Like we're all in this together, and like we're going to get through this no matter what, but we have to stick together, and we
Yeah.
have to take those steps to not feel alone.
Yes, exactly. So I think it would be interesting to kind of see where, or like kind of let people know kind of what our personal quarantine situation is. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'll let you go ahead and start with where you are.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so man, you guys, I feel like we really want this to be like the most open and honest, raw, vulnerable conversation. So like these conversations aren't going to be easy, and like I'm not one to like to admit like weakness or that I'm like struggling or anything like that. So dealing with autoimmune disease was really tough for me because I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me, and I can easily be strong for myself. However, sometimes you got to let those walls down a little bit, because the more that you hold that in, the more painful it's going to get. And eventually you have to work through those feelings, and you have to be able to talk to somebody about it. So during this quarantine, I actually moved back home with my parents a few months back just to save some money. So I'm actually super grateful that I'm not like all alone right now, although it is a little bit weird being like in my old high school room and like not able to leave, like I'm grounded, which is kind of funny. So but I'm just so
You're
grateful
not
to be
grounded.
I know. It feels like it though. But I'm so grateful to be here with my family, and they're awesome. And I would be so sad like if I had to be by myself and I couldn't see them. So I'm really grateful for that. However, the situation is tough. It's not easy for anyone. Like I work from home and I already am home a lot, but I didn't really realize how much I valued those times that I leave the house. I love to go work at a coffee shop and go see friends multiple times per week. And like, I just feel like I need to keep my life moving forward and doing things all the time. So having to stay home and not do anything, it has been really tough. And I think for me personally, the reason it has been so tough is because it has brought up a lot of memories and a lot of past feelings of like, this is the same feeling I had before when I felt super alone. And like, it brings up a lot of fear because I don't want to get stuck in an old pattern. And I just really want to make sure that I'm taking the steps that I need to, and like discussing my feelings and having open conversations with people like you and apparently everybody else. But it's just like realizing those feelings and figuring out a way to turn it around is so important. And so that's really what I've been working on lately, is taking like an initial step each day in order to make myself feel better, and kind of reevaluating like where I'm at halfway through the day. Like, it's so important to be like in tune with your emotions and like be honest with yourself, because you can easily be like, oh, I'm fine, and keep telling yourself that. But like inside you're like, I'm dying. Yeah. And if you aren't honest with yourself and you're continuing to lie to yourself, and you're just digging yourself a deeper and deeper hole, when it's like, you can easily just like let it all out, like even have a good cry or a good scream. And if you don't have anyone to talk to, but like, I think it's just so important to remember that we can feel these feelings and work through them. And there's tons of ways that we can do that. And that's what we'll get into next. But let's hear how your quarantine has been going, how you're feeling about it. You have a little different situation than me.
I do have a different situation. This is my favorite time of year, like aside from like spooky season, obviously, but like the spring is like when all the metal shows start happening. And I love meeting people at concerts. I love getting out and hanging out with my friends who are in, bands and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm bummed that, nobody's touring, like nobody can, obviously. And so it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do with myself?
Right.
Working from home. And yeah, I was in a relationship until quarantine orders hit, and then he pieced out. So I'm like, okay,
yeah.
well,
oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
I got to make the best of it. And yeah, it's like one of those situations where I don't have control. It wasn't something I wanted, and I thought we were going to be together forever. And he decided one day it was just right to stop talking to me. So that kind of like situation leads you like, okay, well, I have all this opportunity now to figure out, like, am I living the life that I want to live? And now that I'm not worried about another person and making them happy. So what do I need now to make myself happy? And it's led to an intense amount of personal reflection. And
right, perfect timing, right? Perfect timing.
Yeah,
like when you're
like no other
just
choice.
Stick you all alone and just let you really, really reflect. Great timing.
Yeah. But I can honestly say though that I feel stronger and so much more secure in myself than I ever have in my entire life. And I'm like, okay, so if you can feel like this during quarantine, where you absolutely have no choice but to kind of like be with your own thoughts, be with yourself, and you actually enjoy it, like you're happy by yourself, like you have nothing to complain about then. And
right.
So, I'm just trying to like use all this like extra energy that I have now and just put it into myself. And all it's honestly made me want to do is give more of myself to other people. I'm like, okay, so for 6 months, I wasn't in the closest contact with a lot of my friends. I can change that right now. I can FaceTime. I can start live videos with people. I can reach back out to people. I have all these opportunities now to treat myself better and treat the people who care about me better. And so it's made me appreciate a lot of the friends that have been there for me for so long. So
absolutely. I think that's like such an important point to make too, is like, while we feel really alone right now, like we have so many opportunities to reach out to people. And I think that it's like important to make sure that you put yourself out there, you know,
Yeah.
like you don't let that fear of, I don't know, rejection almost. I think a lot of times we get really self-conscious when we're alone because
Hmm.
we start to have all these like thoughts in our head like, oh, nobody likes me, or nobody's reaching out to me, nobody wants to hang out with me, nobody wants to do this, when it's like the reality is like, is that really what is happening, or is that just how we're feeling because our mind is so full of all this stress? And
Hmm.
I think that's something that we've all really felt, and I know I've talked to some clients about this too, and how they felt really alone, they didn't have anyone to
Yeah.
talk to, and it's like, but how many people have you reached out to? How many people have you tried to connect with? Like, yes, I totally get that fear of rejection is there. I 100% understand that. But this is the time where you have to step out of your comfort zone and really get to know like yourself, but also the people around you. Like, this is the perfect time to do what you said and really pour love into those around you and like lift them up, because you never know, like, if you reaching out to somebody is their saving grace. And
Yes.
at the end of the day, like, if you can be like a positive influence in one person, like, and change their day or their life or how they're feeling about themselves in that moment, like, how cool is that?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, it's been so interesting to see how some of my friends have handled the quarantine too, and it's also given me the opportunity to evaluate, like, all right, so this person is handling this time super super poorly. Is that
Yeah,
more indicative of their actual personality, or is that like a panic response they're going through? Is that something I can help them with,
totally.
or is that telling me more about who they are as an actual person? Are they
Yeah,
off doing crazy stuff, hurting themselves or hurting other people? Like, okay, so is that actually a person I really want to spend my time with? Or, like, reaching out to friends and being like, hey, I'm feeling super vulnerable. Like, can we
right.
chat? And like having those friends come in for you is like gotta be the best feeling right now for anybody who's
Absolutely.
willing to put themselves out there for that.
Right, absolutely. And like kind of what you and I were talking about yesterday is like, when you're feeling alone, like that's like the one time like you don't want to reach out to people because you do feel vulnerable and you don't want to like, you don't want them to see that side of you, you know? You want to like feel, you want to feel strong. You want to feel like you have it together. And like, especially when you see social media and you see all these like perfect little families or these perfect couples or whoever. And then if you're sitting home alone and you're like, well, what do I have? Who am I? Like, what do I have to give in this world right now? And I think that that's like such a big factor for a lot of people. And especially like the younger generation too, you know, especially they don't know how to connect as well with people if they've only really grown up using like social media. So it can be scary, but the thing is, like, if you don't try, you're never going to know, and the last thing you want to do is isolate yourself more, because from our own personal experience, like, we know how it feels like when you don't reach out and tell anybody
Yeah.
how you're feeling, and those feelings just start building and building and building, and pretty soon they're going to explode, and then you're going to feel really really down. So it's like you have to take that fear and you have to overcome it, even if you're only taking a baby step each day.
Yeah. I think each day offers us new opportunities to try a little bit harder, try something different that didn't work for you in the past, or, if be elastic with your time right now. If you're stuck in this mindset of I'm alone, nobody cares, see, like I have no
Yeah,
notifications on my phone, nobody's reaching out, nobody gives a crap about me. If you're going to live in that and offer yourself no other opportunity for a different experience, you're going to like force that misery upon yourself.
yeah.
Like, you're going to create that kind of reality for yourself. Like, and I'm not speaking like preachy, I'm speaking from
Hmm.
personal experience, because I like, like we've brought up a few times, like the autoimmune issues. When I was diagnosed in 2016 with Lyme disease, like, I was in a terrible relationship. He didn't believe that I had a real chronic illness. He's like,
Yeah,
what do you mean you can't go to the gym? What do you mean you can't work out? And I'm like, literally, my body will not get up right now. And
yeah.
then I had like a best friend at the time, and she had zero empathy for what I was going through. Um, and then I had people at work who had people in their lives who were dying of Lyme disease. And I'm like, I can't talk to anybody and I am
Yeah.
so alone. I am so miserable, and everything I find on the internet, everything that I come across is all negativity. And I'm like, literally, I've dealt with depression my entire life. Like, if I even
Yeah.
try to research Lyme disease, I'm going to make myself like even more miserable. So I became
Totally.
incredibly isolated within myself. Even though I was living with my boyfriend, I didn't talk to him, like barely at all. I mean, for other reasons
Yeah.
as well, but it's like I couldn't say like, please comfort me, I'm in such pain, because he didn't believe I was in pain. He's like,
Totally.
you just look lazy, you're fine. And of
Hmm.
course that's not true, when, especially when you have an invisible illness. There's
Yeah.
nobody can say you're actually feeling like this today, like stop
Right.
complaining. um
Totally.
so yeah, if you live in that sense of isolation, it can lie to you. It
Absolutely.
can burrow into your deepest insecurities and like, see, like nobody actually cares about what you have going on. When in all reality, I knew like the same people back then that I know today. And like you, Amber, like you two, like Trista, like you guys like came into my life and you were so supportive, and you're like, you
Yeah.
deserve better than this, asshole. Like
So
you're gonna
true.
be okay if you
So
take
true.
care of yourself. Like we want to help you, but like you gotta help yourself at the same time. And
Totally.
if like the mindset is like the true prison, like you have to be willing to let that go, to try and trust something else could possibly be a better outcome for you. I was scared as hell to leave my boyfriend because I'm like, I'm barely making any money. I don't know if I can afford this apartment by myself. Where am I gonna live? Like, am I gonna live in my
Right.
car? Like, I was so
Absolutely.
scared. And I ended up being so fine. I was so
Right.
fine.
It's so true. And like what you said just now is like exactly what everybody is going through right now too. It's like there's so much fear over like even just researching more. Like we research more about the disease or the virus and you're working yourself up more. It's like, is that really serving you to constantly be stressing yourself out? Or could we be
Yeah.
using our time? Of course we want to be informed. I'm not saying not to be informed.
Right.
Definitely do that. But if you're spending all of your time just focusing only on the negative aspects when you could be focusing on so many more positive aspects, it's like you're not allowing yourself to even live. It's like you're like guarding yourself from happiness, like, and it really affects everyone around you. And now that we're like all stuck at home, especially if you're somebody in a relationship or you're with your family, it's like if you don't open up about those feelings and discuss it with those around you, it's like you're going to start exploding on the people that you love the most. And that's like usually who we take it out on first. And it's like it's in times of trouble, you would think that it'd be easier for us to go to like the people that we love, but it's like sometimes those are the people that we're most scared to be vulnerable in
Yes.
front of, because we don't want them to judge us and like we don't want them to see us struggling. And but the thing is, like, if you want growth, personal growth, and you want growth in your relationship, in your friendships, whatever it may be, it's like you have to have those tough conversations and you're both going to benefit from it. And
Yeah.
if that person isn't responsive in a positive way, like maybe that person isn't right for you, or that really is going to tell you a lot, but that doesn't mean that should hold you back from expressing yourself and trying to build a better life for yourself, because like you only get one life, and why not choose happiness every day, you know?
Yeah. And that's so much easier said than done if you're
Yeah,
someone who has
completely.
chronic depression. Like I've had it my entire freaking life.
Totally.
And, you know, like we promised that we would be out there and vulnerable. And like there have been so many times in my life I was so dead set on killing myself. Like because
Yeah.
I was so bogged down, and I was really so believing the lies that I was telling
Hmm.
myself, and so consumed with this impression that I had that like nobody cares, my life doesn't matter, I'm not worthy of
Yeah.
anything, and nobody's gonna fucking miss me if I'm gone. And that was like absolute not truth.
Right.
But it as hard as it is, especially when you're so down and you
Yeah.
don't have someone to come into your life and be like, hey, like get off the couch today, like I'm not
Right.
gonna sit in this. If you don't have that kind of person, and I certainly didn't, and many times in
Yeah.
my life, like it's like not only do you have to be feeling the torment, that emotional torment, it's like
Yeah.
you also have to be the one strong enough to be like, all right, today's probably going to suck really bad, but I think I can get through it if I take care of myself. Like, it might be better
Totally.
tomorrow if I take care of myself today. And guess what? It always is. Like,
Yeah,
it's always going to
absolutely.
eventually get better. Like, the next 3 months of your life might really suck, but that
Right.
doesn't mean you can't get through it.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. And it's like just knowing that there's a light at the end of the tunnel is so important. And it's like we all have negative coping
yeah.
mechanisms. And here, I'll let you go. I'll let you talk first about that. And I just know like this is something that it's so easy for us to dive into, like a negative coping habit as soon as like stress hits. But what are we in, like almost like week 3? So now that we are getting past that, like this is where we really need to move past the negative coping mechanisms and like start moving into the more positive ones. But yeah, I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean the obvious like negative coping mechanisms that a lot of people are gonna I've seen so many people turn to drugs right now.
Yeah.
And I mean everybody's gonna have their own different opinion about that. Like there are certain ones I'm cool with, like, the jazz cabbage is like my deal. But like, you know, if you're doing stuff that's like really, really self-destructive,
Yeah,
like we can all create that list for ourselves. Like, all right,
absolutely.
maybe a glass of wine every day is not destructive for one person, but that could mean the end of the world for another person. So you have to
Completely.
decide for yourself what that's going to be. But beyond drugs and alcohol, like, and we just talked about like the isolation factor, like you can be addicted to your own pain. Like you
Hmm.
can cling to it so much
That's
that
such a
you're
good point.
addicted. And whether that pain is like self-destructive or it's destructive outwardly, like you take it out on other people, like if you're someone who needs that stimulus, that pain is going to feel just as good or just as rewarding as pleasure. So if you
Totally.
can't recognize that what you're doing is self-destructive or destructive to relationships and people that you care about, like you're on a completely different path, and it's going to take some effort and a lot of accountability to come back around to a different way of approaching things. Like I was never so like destructive to other people. Like I don't cause fights, like I don't throw punches, like
Hmm.
I'm not that kind of person, but I can be so isolating that I can make
Yeah,
my friends feel like I don't care about them because I'm
totally.
so consumed in how awful I feel about myself and how I'm like, oh, you're ugly, like you're fat, you're unworthy, nobody cares about what you have to say, you're
Yeah.
stupid, like nobody loves you. And like when you're constantly doing that to yourself, like you're not giving love back to the people who are like, hey, like I haven't heard from you in a couple weeks, like what's going on? Like, and the
Absolutely.
people, you're hurting the people who care about you when you're
Right.
so consumed with those lies. And that's when things really started to turn around for me. I'm like, okay, wow, like I see directly how me being so consumed with my own pain is hurting other people, and I really don't want to live that way. And
Yeah.
I had the best experience with my friend Jasmine, when things were starting to crumble in my last relationship. I was only turning to one friend, and
Hmm.
since I really believed that I was going to marry the guy, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to my friend who's had like really successful marriage. Like she's older than me. She's so
Yeah.
much wiser and she understands the way my brain works. I'm only going to tell her about this stuff, which is
Yeah.
like in one sense, that's a really good idea because you're not getting like 1,000 other opinions of, especially
Yeah.
from people who have come from a lot of like destructive relationships who don't
Yeah,
have that great of
totally.
advice.
Just all the man haters don't go to that
Yeah, you don't
relationship
need
advice.
that. You don't need that. And so when I was only telling this one friend about what was going on, I was so consumed with the pain in my relationship, pain I was in, I was abandoning all my other friendships. And when the relationship ended, I finally like reached out to one of my closest friends and I'm like, hey, I haven't told you what's been going on with me. And I'm so ashamed and I'm so scared and I'm in so many horrible emotions right now. And I'm so
Yeah.
sorry, but I need you right now. And like the people who really love you are going to embrace you with like those open arms. And she's like, come over. Like, we're going to hang out. We can have some girl time. And even if you just need me to sit with you while you cry and you just need me to be silent but be present, like I can do that for you. That's the kind of friendship and the kind of relationship that you need. And
Right.
as long as I've believed about myself that I wasn't worthy, I wasn't, I was a shit person, I it was in that moment I started to look around. I'm like, okay, wait, how many amazing female friends do I, and like I have a couple great guy friends too. I'm like, how many amazing people do I have in my life right now that who inspire me, who I look up to, who I get excited to spend time around because they're amazing people. Like, I have these friends around me. Like, these people wouldn't hang out with me if I was really a dirtbag. If I was somebody who was
Right.
talking
So
shit
true.
everywhere, they wouldn't be friends with me. So like,
Right.
maybe I really need to start changing the way that I think about myself.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that helped so much. But, you know, if you don't give yourself the opportunity to put yourself in that kind of situation by reaching out to somebody and being like, hey, I'm really vulnerable right now. I'm scared as hell to send you this message, but please hear me. And if you could do this, that, and the other, like to support me, you know, even just like, hey, can we watch a movie so I don't feel alone tonight? Like,
Right, totally. And it's like, and the same thing goes like vice versa too. It's like if you know that you have a friend that has struggled with depression and anxiety in the past, or like somebody that you know is at home alone right now, like reach out to that friend. If they don't reach back out to you, reach out to them again. Like you never
yeah,
know like what that one text message could do for someone and like how much it really impacts their life. And it's like, just having somebody there, whether you're talking or not, whether you just know somebody is listening, is like such an amazing feeling. And especially if somebody's giving you like non-biased advice or just your support is like all that somebody needs right now. And it's like it's so easy for us to do that. We just have to take like the initial steps and like get out of like this fear mode that we have about reaching out and trying to connect on a level that isn't just revolving around like alcohol or like doing an activity together. It's like when it comes down to actually being like raw and real and having a conversation about your feelings, it's like people don't know what to do. It's like, yeah, we can talk about Netflix all day, but it's like what really matters here is, you know, digging in and what's in your heart, because like that's how we get through this. That's how we get to that next level of happiness and get out of like these destructive patterns. And like being in an isolation situation like this, it's like those destructive patterns can essentially rise like crazy, or you can beat them and start making some really awesome habits that you can take in back into normal life whenever that happens, which hopefully won't be forever. But
yeah.
like I know like when I have felt like super alone, like in the past, it was so easy to turn to like drugs, alcohol, watching TV all the time, looking on Instagram and comparing myself to everyone, seeing people hanging out with other friends and feeling lonely. Or like, I mean, when you have autoimmune disease, you're lonely because like you're stuck at home and like you can't go do those things. And it's like really tough, you know? So it's like when you can like look back and see how much different your life was when you were like looking to alcohol to like cure how you were feeling, it's like you weren't doing anything positive for yourself. Like you were literally only making yourself feel worse. Like you might have felt better like very, very momentarily, but it's like even then you didn't even really feel good. Like you just felt really nothing. Like, yeah, maybe feeling nothing at the time might have been better for a second, but like in the long run, like the next day you're just left with regret. You're left feeling like crap. And it's like, this is doing nothing for you. This isn't serving you. It's like, we have to give ourselves grace and we have to understand like, yeah, this is how I'm feeling. It sucks, but I'm going to go talk to somebody about this. And then we're going to turn this around. And like, we have to flip the switch. So it's like once you like evaluate those feelings, and like it's so good to feel those feelings because you don't want to push it down, you have to figure out how to turn these feelings into a positive, and how can we grow and learn and take away something from this situation and like almost use it like a game, you know, in a sense. It's like every day you're on a new level, you know, like every day is like a video game, you know, you gotta beat it, you got to get past it. Like there's gonna always be these obstacles no matter where you are in life, isolation or not. And it's like if we use this time now to really like dial those in and like set these habits, it's like just think about how good you're gonna feel once like life goes back to normal and this stress is lifted. It's like you're gonna be like a whole new self. And like what are some ways that you have like coped with loneliness like after you've kind of got past like those feelings and decided to be more open with it?
That personal challenge, like, you know, as that's always been something I've been interested in, is challenging myself personally. Like that's what got me into bodybuilding. That's what got me
Yeah.
into pushing myself to be like a better fitness coach, and has pushed me like to move to a brand new city. Like I'm interested in submerging myself into difficult situations
Yeah.
and forcing myself to thrive, because like the alternative is a really boring, unfulfilling life that you don't really get much out of.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to like piggyback on when you were talking about friendships is
Yeah.
I kind of look at it as like a bullseye. Like you have like one or two people who know you completely authentically, and like those are the people at the dead center of the bullseye. Like
Yeah.
when you need a person, like you go right for dead center, and then it's totally okay to signify friends who are like a little ways out and a little ways out and a little ways out. So when it comes to like, hey, like let's go out for like, you know, pizza or like beers or something,
Yeah.
and you know, whatever the social situation, you can go for that like broad spectrum of friends.
Totally.
But when it comes to like knowing who's going to be there, like if you need to talk to someone at 1 a.m, like you go right for that bullseye friends. And sometimes we can make the mistake, especially if we're not someone who has very good discernment with our own emotions, our own feelings, and we become very like codependent on our friends or our relationships because we're in such misery. Like we can try to put everybody we know at the dead center of that bullseye, and we can get so hurt when they like don't respond, because they're not like a dead center or like even close proximity friend. And to expect them to be more, you're always going to end up being hurt, because not everybody's going to jive with like your exact personality, and that's okay.
Totally.
Like I have friends who are just like, yeah, it's fun to talk to you about like makeup or like this, that, and the other, or like, but like when it comes to like you being kind of like weird, like we're not here for it. I'm like, okay, well that's not gonna stop me from being a weirdo, but I just know that you're like not one of the close proximity friends, and that's cool too, because
totally,
you're gonna be totally different, and that's fine, and we're always gonna be able to like grow and get from other people. And yeah, quarantine is going to show you who those external boundary friends are. And it's like, it's the people who are not responding to your text messages. It's the people who aren't checking in on you. The people who are like just hitting the like button on your message and moving forward. Like, all right, now you know who you really need to keep in your close proximity. And those are the friends that you really give your energy to right now, because you really should be giving the most amount of energy to yourself. Like, whether you have health issues or not, like the people who are in your closest proximity deserve to be getting the best of you. And but even more so, like feeding yourself. So like in this time, like it actually started like a few weeks prior to quarantine. In my relationship, my then boyfriend like had completely different spiritual beliefs than me, but I'm a very, very open-minded person. And I'm like, all right, like I want to get to know like a little bit more about what you know. And so like it started this path of like, ooh, I want to like know more about this and think differently about this. And like, I mean, he's out of the picture, but that has only continued this kind of like train I already had going 60 miles down the track of like, I want to know this, and I'm getting more audiobooks now and like watching YouTube videos, and I want to keep this personal growth going. Like this time I have, like quarantine has felt very short to me, honestly. Because I'm working so much every day. So like when like the gates are lifted, like I'm going out like a bat out of hell. Like I'm so pumped to be who I'm going to be, because I'm putting so much energy into my life right now. And yes, days get hard. Like I've had some shitty days. Like I was telling you, like, you know, earlier, like the other day I stayed up until 4 a.m. because I didn't want to have nightmares about my ex, and that didn't work out well for me. But like, that's okay to have hard times, and it's okay to be like, overall, I'm working really hard on being a very positive person, but that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna like run into a ditch at like 9 p.m. at night. Right. That's okay too. But that's when I have like my close friends be like, all right, I'm spiraling.
Absolutely. And it's like, it's so easy to have those ups and downs. And like, all, even though I seem like I am such a positive person and I generally am so positive, that doesn't mean I'm positive all the time. Like I was telling you, I have ups and downs
Yeah.
constantly, but I've worked really hard to figure out ways to turn that around. And I can turn it around quickly with even in the matter of a few hours or
Yeah.
a matter of a few minutes if I'm really making a conscious decision to choose happiness and to choose like a positive path. But it's not always that easy. Like I was telling you this morning, I woke up and I was just feeling like so down. And I was like,
Yeah.
of course, like I feel this way the day that we're going to do this talk is like, I was feeling so overwhelmed by all of this. I literally cried this morning because
Yeah.
I was like,
Me
I
too.
just am so overwhelmed with like, I'm giving everybody all this positivity, like all my clients and telling them all these things. But then here I am over here now just feeling so negative. And like, you get in this cycle of like, am I doing enough? Like, why am I not? How can I help people more? But it's like also like take a step back and like, are you helping yourself? Like, hold
Yeah.
on, Tara. And so this morning I was like, okay, like you need to take a minute. Like I went and prayed. I listened to some worship music. I like wrote down a gratitude list. I literally doused myself in oils. I like put frankincense in my hands and was like basically huffing it for like 5 minutes.
Yes.
And I'm just like, okay, you got this. Like, you know in your heart that you're gonna be okay. Like, yeah, this sucks. And yes, the situation is not ideal, but like you're alive, you're healthy, like you have amazing friends, you have this job where you get to help people and influence them and you can make amazing difference. Like there are so many positives in this world. Like just because one thing went wrong or two things doesn't mean like we need to fall apart. And it's like having those little activities that you can do to center yourself again and like get your
Mhm.
mindset right is so freaking important. And like I cannot stress it enough. It's like I would do like all these like crazy little rituals in the last couple of years. Like I mean, after dealing with the autoimmune disorder and then I got out of like an 8-year relationship, it was really hard. So I just had like a lot, I was going through a lot of pain and like
Yeah.
had a lot of things going on that was really, really difficult. But then I was still like working with so many clients and like trying to pour positivity into them. So I think I was having a big mental battle because I was like, okay, here I am, like telling everybody to be positive, and here I am feeling so
Yeah.
negative. And so it's like when you can reevaluate that and like get back to those habits, it makes it so much better. So like some of the habits that I do is like journaling is huge. Like I mean honestly, I thought journaling was the dumbest thing ever before I started. I was like, a diary, like yeah right, what am I write my feelings down? This is so dumb. And I was like so hesitant to do it. And then somebody had bought me like a journal or like a notebook one time, so I was just like whatever, one day I'm just gonna start writing in it. And I would just start writing down my feelings, whatever they were. Honestly, if anyone ever got a hold of that journal, they'd probably be like, this girl's nuts, because literally it's just like a bunch of
Same.
complaints. And it's just like all the things that went wrong that day. But then like I'm working it out in my head as I'm
Yeah.
writing it. And by the end, it's like, wow, like actually life really wasn't that bad. Like there's maybe like one thing that happened. Like, okay, Tara, like you got stuck in traffic. Like just everything
Yeah.
really that big of a deal. Okay, maybe it was like bigger deals than just the traffic thing. But I'm trying to explain that like there's so many little things that we get so worked up over that literally ruin half of our day. And it's like we need to focus on the factors that we can control. And when
Mhm.
we're feeling out of control, we need to do something to get back into control. So for me, it's like something like journaling, meditation. I love like the Headspace app. It's great. I love that you can just do it for 3 minutes because sometimes you feel like you can't do more. And
Mhm.
that it's like a tiny goal that I can fit in easily. Gratitude list. It's like, if
Yeah.
I even take like 5 minutes and write down 3 things, I automatically feel like I was being silly earlier. Like, okay,
Yeah.
like you're alive. Like, why is that really that big of a deal, Tara? No, it's like when you think about it that way, it's like most of these things aren't like a huge deal. Like, yeah, they're a huge deal, but like in the big scheme of things, like we got this, you guys, you know. And other couple things like essential oils for me, it's like even if you don't believe in essential oils, it's like just to taking the time to step away from what you're doing and have like a moment of quiet and breathe deeply. Even just that alone is so life changing. And if you don't want to use oils, you don't have to. But another thing that I had done in the past is like anytime I'd feel overwhelmed, I would stand up and I'd go in the other room and I would just put my hands, one hand on my stomach, one hand on my chest, and I just close my eyes and do like 10 to 20 deep breaths. And it's like during those breaths, I would try to think of something positive, and I would just think about like, just let this go, just let this go, just let this go. And it's like when you get in those habits of like not holding on to those feelings anymore and just taking a second to breathe, it's like, let your traps relax for a minute. You'll notice like your shoulders are up here, and it's like you just feel so much better. And it's like if you can force yourself to take even 5 minutes to do that, like it's gonna be life changing. But yeah, I'm so curious to like what other people are doing too for their habits, because these are some things that I do, but I know there's other things that I could add. And like reading is a great one. Yoga is a great one. Stretching, going on a walk, or listening to a podcast, or even just sitting in quiet and listening to some calming music is really awesome. But yeah, I'm so curious to hear. Yeah, or metal. Like, I mean, whatever. For me, that would give me like major anxiety, so probably not good for me. But for you, I think that would be good.
It's like that's the thing, is like we all respond to things a little bit differently. Like I'm right there with you with the journaling and the gratitude, like deep breaths, like getting yourself into a calm state. My mind, like just because of the way it works, like me listening to calming music when I'm like really upset, makes me so anxious.
Yeah, and I can actually see that, because it's like you need to get that out.
It does the opposite for me. And so like, oddly enough, like I've been, my music choices lately have been like either Spirit Box she's an incredible like metal singer, or like jazz lately.
But jazz, so random. Jazz.
But yeah, like I've been like actually listening to like a lot of mindset work on YouTube. Like there are credible people out there, like Shallon Lester. It's Shallon. She does incredible like mindset about like dating, relationships, like self-esteem, confidence, boundary setting, all of this stuff. And I'm like, this is the stuff I need right now.
Right. Yeah, but, for sure.
Yeah. When I'm angry or when I'm like really anxious, like to try to like put myself in like a very Zen state. Like it's just like work for me. But if I like scream out some metal and I just like, it's like exercise, you know?
Right.
Especially like on days where my body cannot exercise. Like I go for a drive and like scream out some metal music and like, those are I get the same endorphin rush that, you know, a runner would, except I hate running. So.
Right. And like, I love that you brought this up too, because it's like, obviously we all have different ways of coping. And the thing about it is really just finding like what brings you joy, you know, like what brings you joy and what brings you back to center and calm. And if you can bring those two things together, it's like, that is like a recipe for so much success. And it's like, we go through our days with being so busy and so rushed all the time. And like, now we're being forced to slow down. And it's like, when is the last time you sat down and thought about like, okay, what brings me joy? Like, what could I do today that would make me happy? Like, that would be fun, you know? Like, and it can be something silly. It can be something not silly. It can be whatever it is that brings you joy. It doesn't matter. But it's like, you have to sit down and think about these things and be honest with yourself, because the more that you find out like what your true self really likes and enjoys, and the fears you have, and like what makes you happy, what makes you sad, like the easier you're going to be able to live your life, and you're not going to be stuck with all these like conflicting emotions constantly in your head. It will just really narrow down like what to do when you get in this situation that you feel like you can't get out of, where you feel like you're drowning, but you know you're not.
Yeah, I'm actually like looking at my background. Like I started like freaking macrame, like me of all.
Oh my gosh, that's what Mary just said. Like she was saying like the thing that she likes to do is crafting or like audiobooks, and like I love that too. And it's like Libby also said, like it takes strength and discipline to turn those tools for help, but they're so important. And she's so right. It's like, yeah, these things it's way easier said than done, but it's like, next time you feel stressed or you feel anxiety rushing in, just take a second and be aware of that, and take 5 minutes and go do something that makes you feel better. Even if it's just walking into the other room. Or I know a lot of you guys have kids and that's like probably impossible, but what if you grabbed your kid and you went on a walk? you know? Just changing even the environment is great, or setting up a game, or just acting like a silly goofball for a little bit. It's just like,
Play is so important right now.
absolutely.
And especially because like we as adults who are like also having to navigate social media, which,
Yeah.
you know, if you're over the age of like what, 28 or something, like we were never really prepared for this. Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a great time to like really evaluate, like, okay, here's where my energy is going. Like, when was the last time I actually had fun? I've been like staring at like these like IG booties all day and feeling like ass about myself. Like,
Right.
when was the last time I did something that like actually like was like a talent of mine? Like, what about like hidden
Totally.
talents you forgot you had? Like, I started painting again. I'm like, oh, this
That's
is kind of
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, Mary just said watercoloring, playing with
Yeah.
clay, getting out Liam's toys and playing with them too. And it's just like, it's okay to like take it back to your childhood, you know? Like, what
Yeah.
did you do when you were upset when you were a kid? Like, what made you feel better? And it's like, you don't have to necessarily turn to food or drugs or alcohol or things like that that aren't going to serve you. But doing something that brings you joy, that sparks that joy in your heart, is going to make you feel so much better. And you're not even going to be remembering why you're upset. And it's like, now that you're home and we have this opportunity, it's like, if you set yourself up a schedule with if you're working at home, like set aside parts of your day to do something that makes you happy. Like, you don't always have to fill this with just chores, 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 chores. Like, if you're feeling really down, the chores can wait till tomorrow. Like, we need to take care of ourselves first. Like, if you can't pour from an empty cup, like you have to keep yourself full or you are going to drown.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
true.
think now would be a good time to open up like
Yeah.
comments. Like people, like, you know, if you have questions, if you want advice on something, or if you just kind of like want to share like how quarantine has been for you and what you've been doing with it, like I think now is a great time for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be like really awesome to hear like how people are feeling, and like, are you guys feeling okay? Are you feeling
Yeah.
overwhelmed? Like, what's going on? Because I know that like it's easy to put on a front and be like, oh yeah, we're doing great. But it's like, are you doing great? I know today I
Yeah.
was not doing great. Now I'm doing
Me
a lot
either.
better. But this morning I was doing like total shit.
Oh my God, I love that. Spin in circles till you get dizzy and fall down and laugh about it. I used to do that so much as a kid. I forgot about that. God, I wish I had the space in my apartment for that, but I would love that.
Yes, I love that. I love that one, Mary. That's such a good idea. I wish we could do that right now. Yeah, time just goes by so fast. Like, that's why we got to make the most of it, because this quarantine, I can't believe it's already been like, this is the third week. And yeah, so we can't waste any more time. But I feel like, I think everybody's actually doing pretty good at being positive, at least today. But I think we just need to keep reminding each other and encouraging each other to not lose that. And it's going to come in waves, but it's like just remembering to check in with each other. And like, if you don't hear from your friend, check in, you know?
Yeah,
They're probably going to be really appreciative of it. And it's like right now, work on building those connections and those relationships, and it's only going to pour right into you, and like,
yeah,
you're going to feel so much better. But don't let yourself be overwhelmed, and reach out, because communication is
yeah,
honestly the key to everything right now.
yeah. And not having expectations too, because like this is another thing I haven't heard anybody talk about. So I feel like it's worth saying, but like everybody's handling quarantine a little bit differently.
Yeah,
I've noticed people who are typically very responsive to text messages aren't so responsive right now. And so
true.
that's telling me that like everybody is shifting around, and some people are
Yeah,
like reaching out more, some are less or whatever. And like,
yeah,
don't put expectations when you're reaching out to
absolutely.
somebody. Like, don't expect them to get back to you within the hour, or it might take a full day because they're processing something
Right,
completely different than you are, and you don't always
totally.
know what's happening in somebody else's head. So it doesn't mean that you're unwanted, a bad friend, unliked, or whatever if it takes somebody a little while to get back to you, or you don't get the kind of feedback you want. You don't have to
Yeah.
take that like as a statement of who you are as.
And we
Then
had some ideas too about like what we were going to talk about for the next ones. And so we already
Yeah.
have a few plans, but if you guys have anything that you wanted us to talk about or discuss with you guys, or if you had anyone you wanted us to bring on to talk, like, we love your feedback, and we want to kind of do this a lot more often because we feel like it's easier to talk out loud than to write a post, and it's easier for people to connect with. So as long as you guys are liking that, we're going to keep doing it.
But
Yeah, I agree for sure. Yeah, it
yeah.
went really well. I liked it. I thought it was really good. So I'm excited to do the next one, and we'll get some feedback from you guys. And I definitely want to like try to make them revolving more around how other people are feeling too, not just how we're feeling. So if somebody is struggling with something and you have a topic you want us to discuss, like, please let us know, and like we will do our best to dive into it and learn with you guys, and we can all grow together, and it's going to be really fun.
Oh,
Okay.
but if we do get like a better following and we want to go for longer live feeds, like we can do them on YouTube.
Okay.
And then YouTube won't cut us off at the hour mark. So
Okay.
yeah,
Perfect.
that'll be good for us in the future.
Okay.
But
Awesome.
yeah, I think that's it.
I think so too.
Um,
Okay, love. Well, I'm ready to go get some dinner and finish up some emails. So time to
I can't
sign
believe
off. But I love you.
I love
And
you
thank you
so
guys
much.
for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yes, yes. Have a good day.
Talk
Bye.
soon. Bye.